Thank you about that. Enjoy.
All right. It indeed feels like homecoming. It's so nice to be on the other side and to connect with this beautiful, thriving, colorful community. I'm very thankful to everyone that made the effort to show up. Um, Before we begin, I would like to invite you to a very quick self reflection exercise. You don't have to do anything, but it works better for you. You can take a deep breath, and if you want, you can close your eyes. I'm gonna ask you 3 questions, and you can keep the answer to yourself and perhaps explore it throughout the talk. The first question is, what would you dare to create if you knew nothing could go wrong? Next up, what kind of things would you make if fear didn't hold you back? And last one, which ideas would you put out into the world if your body, mind, and soul didn't know shame? Whatever has come up in your mind, I want you to sit with it, let it ruminate, let it marinate. And when you're ready, you can open up your eyes if you were closing them, and we can begin. All right. We are talking about the theme of pride, and I wanted to bring you all into this conversation and invite you to connect with wherever you are as creatives, as people, as humans. Because it's something that, in a way, touches all of us. How much are we allowed to be ourselves? How much do we allow ourselves to be who we truly are? But a little bit about me first. My name is Luis Bracamontes, and I am a creative strategist, an award-winning queer poet, and a brand marketing specialist. Over the past 8 years, I've lived in 3 continents, worked in 6 countries, and lived in 8 cities. All the journey led me to Rotterdam. I've been here for a bit more than 5 years. My work in performing arts and poetry has given me some awards like the Youth Achievement Award in my hometown in Morelia in Mexico. I've been ambassador of Poetry International Festival in Rotterdam. My work has been featured in international festivals like Ars Electronica in Austria. Here's one of my colleagues for that project. My work in marketing has led me to work and collaborate with brands from many different places, such as It Gets Better Mexico, the Ministry of Finance in Malaysia, Nowboat, the VR Studio Frisch in Vienna, Rotterdam Pride, most recently Tickets, and the Neo Bank from the Netherlands Bank. But all of this elaborated journey and trajectory has been just a sophisticated way of driving my creativity back to this. Everything that I've done has been in a way to lead me back to this state of pure creativity, curiosity, wonder. Because we are all born curious. We are all born open, hungry for the world. But over time, life happens. And we learn to make ourselves smaller. We grow quieter. We paint our colors a bit grayer, blend ourselves in the background, and sometimes even stop creating altogether. What we're going to do today is we are going to explore 3 paths to find your way back to yourself, to that divine creativity, to that authentic sense of self, where you can draw energy to put beautiful things into the world and connect with other people. Would you like to come in this journey with me? Yeah. I didn't hear you. Much better. I'm like Gaga. I live for the applause, applause, applause. All right. The first point is going to be embracing your authentic self. Now, this is very easily said, but doing it is pretty murky. It is really complicated. It's a years-long journey of discovering all the sides of yourself that make you you, including the shadow parts that may feel a bit harder to embrace. And I want to touch on this point by telling you a story about myself. I am Mexican, born and raised, producto mexicano. And when I moved to the Netherlands in 2018, one of my biggest insecurities when entering the workforce was my nationality, was my identity. And don't get me wrong, I love being Mexican, I love my culture, I love my country. But around that time, that huge part, that huge element of myself felt like a very big disadvantage. Because yes, I might be very good at what I do, but there are other people who are just as good as I am, or even better, who understand the culture, who can speak the language, who may not need a work visa. So I kept feeling at a disadvantage. And it got to a point where I sat with myself and I said, okay, this is not sustainable. I cannot continue moving forward with this level of doubt. I felt like I was driving with a handbrake on. So I said, what if I turned this element that feels like a weakness into a strength? You, company, you don't want to hire me in spite of me being Mexican, in spite of me coming from a third world country. You want to hire me because I am Mexican. And this led me to create this application to several jobs with the help of a couple of friends, where I put together this, this was the slide for the Mexican identity. This led me to create a package application with the help of some friends, delivered directly to the companies, that allowed me to skip the line and have a very different approach, where I would showcase my identity and what I can do, my creativity up front. I put together these packages with a set of cards. I set out a route and delivered the packages with the help of my best friend to all of these companies. Now, each package contained this set of cards that started like this. Hello, team of, in this case, it was a company of Publitas. Hungry for nachos? This is a reference to Rick and Morty for the ad campaign Hungry for Apples, for those who watch it. Well, I'm hungry for your, in this case, senior performance marketer position. Wink, wink. So say yes to sombreros, say yes to cerveza, say yes to Luis. But wait, who the fork is Luis? And I included this like short blurb about who I am, including like the diversity, equity, and inclusion target for them. Still hesitating to take a bite? Doubting if I'm the right guy for the job? Just remember, I am a Mexican, not a Mexican. Now it sounds cheesy, but it worked then.
So don't be like some and build a wall between us. Because us Mexicans, we build tunnels. Check out my work proposal and portfolio in the following link. So I was on top of the package, but what was inside the actual box? Well, inside the box, you would find my CV as a Mexican restaurant menu to show a bit of color, like the main dishes, specials of the house, drinks, desserts, and behind and underneath, underneath the CV, you would find actual nachos with Albert Heijn guacamole. And okay, all of these packages were delivered. I only made like 4 or 5 because I was a broke student and I couldn't afford to buy that many. But I got really good responses from all of them, and this method led me to land my first job in the Netherlands at Bank, the neobank, which is nowadays one of the very few startup unicorns in Europe, valued at over €1 billion, more or less. I think that's the definition of a unicorn. But anyway, not only did I turn this weakness or apparent disadvantage into a strength, by embracing this side of my identity, it also allowed me to discover new sides of my creativity. This also impacted my poetry and my spoken word voice, which channeled into a couple of pieces, one of them called Megs I Can. You can already tell the relation to the other slide from the natural application. This poem was featured in the Zwarte Schaap International Poetry Festival and in a video series called Focus. And to this day has been one of the defining pieces of my poetry career because it allowed me to find the point of view of where I wanted to speak from and connect with others. Let's go to the next point. Find your community. Now, this is actually really fitting considering that we are currently at an event that is so community-based. Many of us come from different backgrounds, both culturally and when it comes to disciplines, but here we are connecting with each other on the one thing we have in common, that we either are creative, work in a creative field, or we acknowledge that, as the manifesto says, everybody is creative and we want to tap into that. And it allows us to spark conversations, exchange LinkedIn connections, business cards, collaborations, etc. And I'm going to talk to you about this project, one of my jewels of my career and life, which is Unwanted Words. Unwanted Words is the first platform in the Netherlands for queer poets and spoken word artists. I founded this in 2018 after I was a bit lost creatively when it came to my writing. At that point, I knew I wanted to create poetry from a queer perspective, but I didn't want to do it alone. And around that time, actually, during one of the Creative Mornings events, I made this like open call, like, hey, I want to start this project. I want to start getting together, creating together, having a space for queer poets to inspire each other, connect. And one of the people from, hey, Stefana. Stefana used to be part of Creative Mornings, and after that event, she also joined the Unwanted Words project when it was still a baby idea. Over the past 5 years, this project evolved from being a collective into being a full-on platform. We created a series of queer poetry nights, open mics, and spaces for beginners and for very seasoned performers to come and connect and be their true authentic selves. We hosted a series of events over the years in collaborations with festivals like Rofa Mon Amour, with the Van Gogh Museum, Milkshake Festival, Telem Festival, many others at this point. I'm struggling to remember all of them. We also recognized the importance of community building and acknowledging the talent that already existed within our community. So we created in 2020 the first Queer and Feminist Poetry Awards, made by the community, for the community, to acknowledge all the talent, award them, and help them open doors in other more heteronormative spaces. Because of the success of these awards, we received a subsidy to publish our first book in 2021, which is the Queer and Feminist Poetry Anthology, compiling the works of 50 different poets residing in the Netherlands, in English and in Dutch, born and raised Dutch, from the Caribbean, immigrants, refugees, from all the spectrum of the queer experience, from a wide variety of races and cultures, allowing us to build community through an intersectional lens. This is actually out there, available for sale. You can buy them in several bookstores in the Netherlands and in Belgium, and you can also order it in bol.com or at Donor. So, wink wink, it's a good idea for a present. The important part here that I would like to share is that even though the whole team has worked really hard to achieve this, we haven't really worked as hard in comparison to everything that we've achieved and how much we've grown as a platform this past few years. A key part of our success is our community and how we fall under a very clear niche. I usually say that we are the niche of the niche of the niche of the niche. Because out of all organizations, we're just a grassroots organization. Out of all the literary initiatives, we are only poetry. Within poetry, we're only spoken word. Out of all the LGBTQ plus projects, we are mostly just poetry. So in this Venn diagram, in this intersection, whenever people think about poetry and they think queer, they think of us. Whenever somebody is wanting to organize queer initiative and they want a performer, if they want poetry, they come to us. So that specific positioning in the market allowed us to connect deeper and better with the people around us. It was easier for people to identify what is it that we do, and whenever they have something that approaches any need of what we do, we are top of mind. That positioning is very important because, as they say in marketing, if you are talking to everybody, it means you are talking to no one. So this is the invitation. What is your community? What is your niche? And I promise you, if you start saying yes to yourself every day, life is going to unravel and is going to show you where you truly belong. Because you cannot truly find a sense of belonging until you embrace every single part of who you are and say, yes, I'm showing up as who I am. And people around you see you, recognize you, and that's how communities are born. Now, before we move to the next topic, I'm also going to do a little commercial because in November, we are having the second edition of our Queer and Feminist Poetry Awards, this time with the theme Decolonizing Gender. It's an invitation and it's also a little bit of a brag. Thank you. Now, for the final point, discover your core values. What is it that you stand for? What do you believe in? What is your stance? What's your hero or heroine story? And what is your foe or villain? What are you standing up against? This is really important to define who you are and what you're offering for yourself and for others to understand. And I'm going to tell you a couple of examples of my day job, of how this can express. Back in 2020, started working at this company, Tickets, which is a platform to buy tickets to museums and attractions worldwide. I started working there in March 2020. Do you remember what happened that year? Yeah. After the panic of realizing I was not going to lose my job, um, me and my team were faced with this huge challenge. Everything is closed. Pretty much all of the products in our platform are inaccessible. The entire marketing strategy went out the window and we had to start from scratch. We were presented with a challenge and we said, okay, where do we go from here? So we had to take a step back and say, okay, what is our brand DNA? What is our ethos? What do we stand for? Our mission is making more ways to culture, making culture more accessible. So we thought, nowadays when culture is literally not accessible, what can we do? We clearly cannot sell anything. Now the key question here was, what do you have to say when you can't sell nothing? So we went ahead and organized a test run of a culture festival in collaboration with different venues in different markets to offer virtual tours that they can access through Zoom. I know now a Zoom event sounds very uncomfortable and cringy nowadays, but back then there was nothing else, so everybody was like, okay, give me something to do. This led us to partner with several museums and attractions over 6 weeks in 6 countries in France, the UK, the Netherlands, Spain, Italy, the US. Venues including the Empire State Building. What's this castle in France? I forgot. Versailles, the Chateau de Versailles. This castle. This castle. Casa Batlló in Spain. The ABBA Museum, and many, many, many more. This led us to create this campaign of the Awakening Week. Stories during this summer where some of the things were open, things were semi-awakening before going back to sleep again. And this led us to collaborate with a lot of our partners, a lot of our venues in ways that previously we may have not been able to do because of the contracts, because of the sales, because of the commissions. When sales were not a problem, when we couldn't sell anything, we said, okay, how can we create value from a place of authenticity? From a place where we showcase what we stand for. More ways to culture, making culture more accessible. We partnered with over 50 museums, 21,000 people participated, and we got nominated for a Webby Award for this campaign. This became the base, the foundation for our marketing strategies for the next 3 years. And the year after, in 2021, we took it one step ahead. And when some cities were opening up and getting relaxed, we decided, okay, how about we make actual in-person events? And we partnered with MoMA, with the Centre Pompidou, Escher in el Palais, Casa Batlló, and the Duomo di Milano to invite people to work from home from a once-in-a-lifetime location where they could just show up at the venue, bring their laptops, and say like, oh my God, I'm so cultural, while they are still delivering on their KPIs. This campaign was highly successful. It was featured on Sky News in Italy, Wired, Vanity Fair, National Geographic. But where I want to bring it back is, yes, this is a bigger brand, this is a company, but you as creatives, what do you stand for? What is it that you have to say when you don't have to sell anything? That's a question that I want you to bring home and explore. Now, to round it all up, it is really complicated to discover all of these things about ourselves because we live with ourselves 24/7. But the invitation here is to not let familiarity rob you from your own magic. Because perhaps to you, who you are is something just like pretty common, pretty average. But for somebody else, there may be magic hidden within. Now, some of the takeaways. To round it up, we have these 3 points of coming back into yourself and discovering that divine creativity. We covered embrace your authentic self. What is it that makes you unique? What is your story? What are parts of you that you want to bring into your work, out into the world? Next up, find your community. Tap into your niches. There can be multiple. Extra points if it's the niche of 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 the niche. Lastly, discover your core values. What is your point of view? From where are you creating? What's your hero, heroine story? And what is the enemy that you're standing up against? I hope with these 3 elements, you can have some tools of inspiration to further discover all the magic that you have within. Because regardless of where you're standing, you are worth of being seen, you're worthy of being creative, you're worthy of connecting with other people and expressing your voice and your talent. And I hope with these clues, you can discover further steps in that journey for yourself. And there's more. If you call now, I am offering 3 free creative coaching sessions for a couple of people in the room. If you want to participate to win one of these series of creative coaching, you can scan the QR code, fill in a form, and I'm going to select 2 to 3 people to go on this journey together and go a bit more in depth with the topics that we explored during this session. I'm going to leave it a couple of more minutes. No, not minutes. We don't have that much time. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope you can bring this with you. I hope you can share it with others. I hope you can find your communities. I'm really honored to be here and to share my trajectory with you. And just as we say during the end of the Unwanted Words events, be queer, be safe, and take care of each other. Thank you very much.